My key slid into the lock, but it didn't turn. It was dead. Through the glass, I saw a stranger sitting on my sofa, drinking my scotch. I pounded on the door. It swung open, revealing my brother, Brandon, wearing my silk robe. He didn't look surprised. He looked bored. "You're trespassing," he sneered, blocking the entrance. "I sold this place last week." I froze. My own brother just told me he sold my home while I was overseas. Drop a comment. What is the first thing you would do in this second? Scream? Call the cops? Or something much worse? I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing his little sister break down. I just pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed 3 numbers. "Emergency services," the operator said. "I am reporting a break-in in progress," I said, my voice flat and clinical. "I have unauthorized occupants in my home. 1 male, known to me. 1 male, unknown. I am the sole owner of the property." Brandon laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. "Put the phone away, Danielle. You're embarrassing yourself." He waved a stack of papers in my face like a weapon. "It's done. Signed. Sealed. Delivered. I had power of attorney. Mom and Dad approved it. We needed the capital, and you weren't using the place." I looked at him, really looked at him. "My name is Danielle Vance. I am 29 years old. To my family, I am the invisible daughter, the one who moved to the city and forgot her roots. To the rest of the world, I am a forensic auditor. I hunt hidden assets for a living. I track money that people kill to keep secret." Brandon looked at me and saw a victim. I looked at him and saw a target. "The police are on their way," I told the operator, staring dead into Brandon's eyes. The stranger on the couch stood up. He was wearing a suit that cost more than my first car, and he didn't look scared. He looked annoyed. This was Mr. Sterling. "I paid $1.2 million cash for this apartment," Sterling said, his voice like gravel. "I have the deed. I have the keys. If you have a family squabble, take it outside. I'm trying to relax." 1.2 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. This apartment was valued at 2.5 million. Brandon hadn't just sold my home. He had given it away in a fire sale. He had burned my equity to get quick cash. "You bought stolen property," I said to Sterling. "And you," I turned to Brandon. "You didn't sell a house. You just signed a confession." Brandon stepped closer, looming over me. He used to intimidate me with his size when we were kids. He used to pinch me until I bruised and then tell our parents I was lying. He thought this was the same game. "Don't be a brat," he hissed, leaning down so only I could hear. "It's over. The money is already gone. I invested it. You're going to thank me when the returns come in. Now get out of here before the cops come and I have to show them the paperwork that proves you're crazy." I didn't back down. I didn't blink. I leaned against the doorframe of the home I had bought with blood, sweat, and 80-hour work weeks. I crossed my arms. "I'm not going anywhere, Brandon. I'm waiting for the sirens." And a minute later, we heard them. The wail of police cruisers echoing off the glass canyons of Manhattan. Brandon's smirk faltered for the first time. He thought he was playing Monopoly. He had no idea he had just started a war. The police officers were polite, but useless. They looked at Brandon's paperwork, looked at my passport, and gave the shrug that every victim of fraud learns to hate. "It's a civil matter, ma'am," the older officer said, capping his pen. "He has a signed power of attorney and a deed. We can't determine validity on the sidewalk. You'll have to take it up in court." Brandon waved from the window as the cruiser pulled away. He looked like a king in a castle he hadn't built. I stood on the curb, the cold wind cutting through my coat, and I didn't scream. I just watched. They saw a woman locked out of her apartment. They saw the spare child, the unmarried daughter with no husband to protect her, and no children to validate her existence. That's all my family had ever seen. They thought I was a mouse. They had no idea they had just locked a wolf out of its den. I turned and walked to a coffee shop down the block. I needed Wi-Fi, and I needed silence. My family thinks I do data entry. That's what they tell people at parties. "Danielle works with numbers," my mother says, with a dismissive wave, before launching into a 20-minute monologue about Brandon's latest visionary venture. They think I sit in a cubicle and tap keys. The truth is a little sharper. I am a forensic auditor for a private intelligence firm. I don't balance checkbooks. I hunt cartels. I track terrorist financing through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. I find the money that people kill to hide. My brain is a weapon, honed by 10 years of hunting liars who are infinitely smarter than my brother. I opened my laptop. The screen glowed, a familiar comfort. I bought that apartment 5 years ago. It wasn't just luxury. It was a fortress. It was the only place in the world where I didn't have to be the safety net. Growing up, I was the one who fixed things. When Brandon crashed his car, I did his homework so he wouldn't fail the grade. When Dad's business accounts didn't add up, I stayed up until 3 in the morning fixing the ledgers so the IRS wouldn't audit him. They never said thank you. They just expected it. I was the infrastructure. Brandon was the ribbon cutting. I remembered a dinner 3 years ago. It was Christmas Eve. My mother had looked across the table, her eyes wet with tears of pride, and toasted Brandon. "To our brilliant son," she had said, "for landing that huge crypto partnership." Brandon had beamed, soaking up the adoration for a deal that I knew because I had checked the company registration was a Ponzi scheme. I sat there, invisible, sipping my wine. My mother turned to me and said, "Danielle, try to look happy for your brother. You're always so sour. Maybe if you focused less on work, you'd find a man." They laughed at me then. They called me bitter. But they didn't know that 3 hours earlier, I had secretly wired $50,000 to my father's business account because they were about to miss payroll. I saved their reputation while they mocked my loneliness. I looked at the cursor blinking on my screen. For years, I had been the silent partner in their survival. I had protected them from their own incompetence. I had let them treat me like a servant, because I thought that was the price of belonging. But looking at the digital deed Brandon had forged, something snapped. It wasn't a break. It was a calibration. They thought they had stolen a house from a helpless sister. They forgot that I dismantle empires for a living. And I decided right then, sitting in a plastic booth with lukewarm coffee, that I wasn't going to sue them. That was too slow. I was going to audit them. I pulled up my family's financials. I didn't need passwords. I had set it up for them years ago to help Dad manage his failing business invoices. They never changed the passwords. Why would they? They didn't think I was a threat. I drove straight to my parents' house in the suburbs. I didn't call ahead. I wanted to see their faces before they had time to rehearse their lies. The house looked the same as always: manicured lawn, fresh paint, the picture of upper-middle-class respectability. Inside, however, the rot was absolute. I walked in without knocking. They were all there in the living room. My father, Gregory, was pouring a drink. My mother, Patricia, was looking at fabric swatches on the coffee table. Brandon was there, too, with his wife, Kayla. Kayla was resting a hand on her pregnant belly, looking smug. The conversation stopped the second I stepped onto the rug. "You caused a scene," my father said. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't ask where I was going to sleep. He just looked disappointed. "Sending the police to your brother? That was excessive, Danielle." "He sold my home," I said, my voice steady. "He forged my signature." "We authorized it," my mother said. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. "We sat down as a family. Brandon, Kayla, your father, and I, and we made a decision. Brandon needed liquid capital. His image is crucial for this new venture. He couldn't launch a global brand living in a rental. So you stole my apartment?" "We reallocated family resources," my father corrected, swirling his scotch. "You're not using the equity, Danielle. You're single. You have no children. You're never there. Why do you need a $2.5 million glass box in the sky? It's wasteful." It wasn't just greed. It was a philosophy. They had convinced themselves that my success was a communal resource, a reservoir they could drain whenever the golden child got thirsty. They didn't see me as a separate human being with property rights. They saw me as an organ donor who was selfishly holding onto a spare kidney while their son needed a transplant. "You have a job," Kayla chimed in from the sofa. She rubbed her stomach, using her pregnancy like a shield. "You have a career. Brandon has a legacy to build. We have a son coming. Don't you want your nephew to grow up with the best?" "Not if it's stolen," I said. "See?" My mother sighed, looking at my father. "She's so bitter. I told you she wouldn't understand. She thinks everything is hers just because she earned it." I looked at them. I looked at the parents who had taught me to tie my shoes, and then taught me that I didn't matter. They weren't ashamed. They were self-righteous. They genuinely believed that stripping me bare to clothe their son was a moral act. To them, my independence was an insult to their need. "You liquidated my life," I said softly. "Because you think I don't need it. Because I don't have a husband or a baby. You think I don't count. We think you have enough," my father said, turning his back to me. "Stop being dramatic. Brandon will pay you back eventually. Consider it a zero-interest loan. Now, go find a hotel. We're celebrating the launch." I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. I realized in that moment that you cannot reason with a parasite. A parasite doesn't hate the host. It just needs to feed. "Okay," I said. "I understand the logic now." I turned and walked out the door. They thought I was accepting defeat. They thought they had shamed me into submission. They didn't know I was walking back to my car to initiate the kill sequence. I drove to a 24-hour internet cafe on the edge of the city. I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't go to a friend's house. I needed a war room. And I needed bandwidth. I sat in the back corner, the hum of servers the only sound, and opened my laptop. My family thought the conversation was over. They thought they had successfully gaslighted me into submission. They were popping champagne right now, celebrating the liquidation of my assets. They forgot who I was. I don't get mad. I get receipts. I logged into the family's shared cloud. I had set it up for them years ago, to help Dad manage his failing business invoices. They never changed the passwords. Why would they? They didn't think I was a threat. One click, and the entire financial anatomy of the sale flashed onto my screen. I traced the wire transfer. $1.2 million had hit Brandon's account on Tuesday. Where did it go? I didn't have to write code or hack a mainframe. I just looked at the outgoing transfers. Brandon was sloppy. He was arrogant. He thought money was a toy, not a tool. Transfer 1. $400,000 to a shell company in Jersey, called Apex Solutions. I ran the name through a watchlist database. It flagged immediately. High-risk lending. Loan sharks. Brandon wasn't investing in a startup. He was paying off a gambling debt that was about to get his legs broken. Transfer 2. $500,000 to a luxury marine broker. Down payment on a Sunseeker yacht. I stared at the screen. He had stolen my home to buy a boat. I pulled up his Instagram. He had posted a photo an hour ago. He was standing on the deck of a yacht, probably just visiting the showroom, wearing a new watch, holding a cigar. The caption read, "Big moves only. The empire starts today. Number CEO, number legacy." I scrolled through the comments. My mother had commented, "So proud of my visionary son." Kayla had posted heart emojis. It was pathetic. It was a masterclass in the psychology of the weak man. Brandon didn't want the money for security or for his child. He wanted the costume of wealth. He needed the yacht and the watch because, without them, he was just a man who had failed at every job he'd ever held. He believed that if he looked like a king, he would become one. He thought power was something you could buy with stolen cash. He didn't realize that true power is invisible. True power is sitting in a neon-lit cafe at midnight, holding the digital leash that can choke the life out of his fantasy. I could have called the police right then. I could have frozen the accounts immediately. But I paused. He had just paid the deposit. The sale on the yacht wasn't final until the funds cleared escrow in 48 hours. The loan sharks had been paid, which meant they wouldn't kill him yet. But the money for the yacht? That was still in transit. I leaned back in my chair. If I stopped him now, he would just claim it was a misunderstanding. He would play the victim. No. I needed him to commit. I needed him to stand in front of the world and claim this victory, so that when I pulled the rug out, the fall would shatter him completely. I closed my laptop. I would give him exactly 24 hours to play king. I would let him sign the papers. I would let him pop the cork on the champagne. Enjoy the view from the throne, Brandon. Because tomorrow, I'm coming for the crown. The next morning, my phone buzzed with the notification I was waiting for. It was a text from Brandon. A picture. It was my living room. Empty. My books were gone. My art was gone. The caption read, "Liquidation complete. Locks changed again. Don't bother coming back, sis. It's over." He thought this was the victory lap. He thought he had scrubbed me out of existence. I stared at the photo, at the empty space where my life used to be, and I didn't feel loss. I felt the cold, metallic click of a trap snapping shut. "It is over," I whispered. "Just not for me." I walked back to the Skyline Sanctum an hour later. I didn't bring the police this time. I didn't bring a locksmith. I brought a single manila folder. I buzzed the intercom. "Delivery for Mr. Sterling," I said. The door clicked open. Money makes people careless. They assume everyone is there to serve them. I rode the elevator up to my apartment. The door was already open. Inside, Brandon was celebrating with Mr. Sterling, drinking my champagne. Brandon's grin vanished when he saw me. Sterling barely looked up. "You again?" Sterling said flatly. "I bought this place. Leave before I have you arrested." "I'm not here to harass you," I replied, setting a folder on the counter. "I'm here to save you a lawsuit." "Get out," Brandon snapped. "I sold it legally. I had power of attorney. Mom and Dad approved it. You lost. You had power of attorney over me," I said calmly. "That lets you pay my bills. It does not let you sell what I don't own." "I sold your house," Brandon sneered. "That's the problem," I said, opening the folder. "I don't own it." Silence fell. 6 months ago, I continued, I transferred the property into a revocable living trust. The trust owns this apartment. You signed the sale as Danielle Vance. not as trustee. You had zero authority. Sterling leaned forward, reading the document. He stopped drinking. It means your contract is void, I said. You bought a property Brandon had no right to sell. Sterling stood slowly and turned to Brandon. You sold me a house you didn't own? She's lying. Brandon panicked. I have the money. Do you? I asked. He froze. The money was gone. I want my money back, Sterling said quietly. I can't, Brandon whispered. You have 1 hour, Sterling replied. I picked up my folder. If you're still here when the police arrive, I told Sterling. This becomes fraud, not a civil issue. Brandon grabbed my arm. Please, sign it over. He'll kill me. You wanted to be important, I said, pulling away. Important people pay their own debts. My parents stormed in minutes later, demanding I fix it. They didn't care about the felony, only the money. I'm not signing anything, I said. I'm keeping my home. Sterling cut in, his voice cold. I gave your son $1.2 million. Who's paying me back, him or you? My father went pale. My mother begged me to sacrifice myself, because we're family. You're right, I said. Family helps family. Then I pointed at them. Sell your house. Liquidate your retirement. His debt is your legacy now. They stared at me in horror. This apartment is mine, I said. Get out. The police arrived for fraud. As they escorted Brandon away, he snapped. He broke free. Charged at me with a crystal award raised overhead. He never landed the blow. An officer tackled him hard. Glass shattered. Brandon screamed as cuffs snapped shut. Brandon Vance, the officer said. You are under arrest for fraud and attempted murder. I looked down at him. I didn't take anything from you, I said quietly. I just stopped giving. After they left, the apartment felt wrong, tainted. A crime scene. I called my realtor. Sell it, I said. Tomorrow. I walked out without looking back. I sold the glass box and disappeared somewhere they can't find on a map. But sometimes I wonder, was the violence inevitable the moment I finally said no?